Good evening. Welcome to the News Charter School Board of Directors meeting for March 28, 2023. To establish a quorum, I will call the roll. Nicole. Here. Michelle. Here. Jason. Here. Benji.
Here.
Also not here yet. Having established a quorum, I hereby call the News Charter School Board of Directors meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. on March 28th, 2023. I will now read the ethics statement for North Carolina State Government. Conflict of interest reminder per North Carolina General Statute 138A-15E. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Okay. Next is the approval of the February 2023 meeting minutes. We can either read the minutes aloud or silently, or if everyone has read them, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Nicole. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. The motion on the table is to approve the February 2023 meeting minutes as presented. I will call the roll. Nicole. Michelle.
I'm going to abstain since I was not at.
Okay. Jason.
Aye.
Benji.
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Make sure we have 4. Okay, great. The meeting minutes are approved. The next thing on our agenda is public comment, and for the first time in a year and a half, maybe 2 years, yay, we have public comment. Nicole Bunner, would you like to go first?
Sure. I can stay here. Or...
It doesn't matter wherever you're comfortable, as long as we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Nicole Bunner. Thank you for the time. I am a mom to 3 new students, grades 4, 3, and kindergarten. In the past 4 years, my 4th grader has experienced teacher turnover personally, his class alone, at least 8 times that I can count. But we could double that considering the introduction to the short-term substitute teachers and then the introduction to the replacement teacher. Have any of the board members considered the cost of this level of turnover? Time is money, we all know that. There's been countless numbers of teaching hours and learning lost due to these interruptions. Not to mention onboarding, ramp-up time for a new teacher, the additional pressure this puts on the other teachers in that grade, and the stress for the students. And this is only one example in one grade. I know that there are other classes experiencing this turnover as well. I also know that not all teachers are leaving the profession altogether. People leave jobs most often for one of two reasons: due to poor leadership and administrative support and or money. Are you, the board, offering exit interviews to better understand this chronic issue? Is the board thinking about ways to make the culture of news better? Ways to make the teachers feel less burdened and more supported? Ways to make them feel appreciated so they stay? I mentioned that I wanted to speak up tonight to appear, and their response was, why? Nobody cares. So I'm here to ask how the board is addressing this problem and to better understand your role. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments. Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Rebecca Smith. I have a 7th grader and 4th grader here at News. I wanted to speak tonight also about teacher and staff turnover. And my fear is that I also work in education, so I know it's an issue everywhere, but I think when it is such an issue everywhere, it's easy to become complacent about it and to stop trying and looking for new ways to retain teachers and staff. My son is in the 7th grade, and I counted it up. So he is in the 7th grade. He started here in the 1st grade. There are only 2 teachers in the elementary school that remain. So only 2 teachers that my son had in elementary school remain at News. And I just feel like that's very telling. When you enroll your child, and especially at a K through 12 school, you want to feel like you're entering into a community, a place where everyone's going to know who they are. And when they look back and all of their teachers are gone, they don't build a connection with the school, and that's just really concerning for me. I'm a parent, but I'm also an educator, and people ask me, where do your children attend school? When I tell them news, I'm quick to say my children are happy there. They have friends there. We love the staff. They are well cared for. But parent people always say, but I cannot send my child there because of the teacher-staff turnover. That's what I hear over and over and over again. And my family loves this school, and so we don't want that to be our reputation. We don't want that to be what we're known for. So Nicole and I are here to help. We're here to talk to you guys. A lot of the parents in different grade levels, are talking. We're here to kind of encourage some of them to come. We just want to know what can be done. I know at my school, I'm an administrator. I do teacher satisfaction surveys, create action plans. And we're not saying that those things aren't being done, but if they are being done, we don't know about it. And so we just want to partner and to find out what's being done so that we can move forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you taking the time to come and share your thoughts with us and to do it in a very constructive way. We really, really, really appreciate
Constructive
that.
lady.
And just so you guys know, we don't have time built into the meeting tonight to address your concerns, but I think, I can speak for the board when I say we appreciate what you're saying, and maybe we could talk about something offline. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I'd actually, if you guys could maybe email all of us some of those questions and thoughts too, that way we can have them written down and kind of look at them and review them.
Yeah, great. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. We do not have any guest discourse. Dr. Blackwell, do we have any correspondence from the authorizer? Okay. All righty then, you are up for the superintendent report.
In your packets, you will find all of the handouts for what I'm going to present this evening, starting with the superintendent report. You can see the 4 things on there. I'm going to go over the mid-year map report, and then I'm going to briefly talk about the risk management assessment. Ms. Ormiston and Ms. Matthews are going to talk about the summer school plan, and then Mr. Williams is going to talk about the CIPA policy that needs to be approved. So the map data that you have in front of you, you also have outside of the stapled packet, the document that's got yellow columns on it. I added that in there because it will help make it a little bit easier when you look at slide number 3, which is your 3rd page. So it's MAP versus EVOS projections for reading. If you'll look at that graph and then you'll look at that separate piece of paper with those yellow columns, it will help you be able to see those numbers better. I apologize, I'm not used to hard copies at board meetings. I'm used to being able to show you everything. So
This is great, thank you.
you have 2 columns here. You have the MAP projected proficiency, which is in blue, and then you have the EVOS projected proficiency, which is in red. You can look and see that on a couple of them, the MAP is showing that we're going to perform better than the EVOS data is, and then for 8th grade, EVOS is saying we're going to perform better than the MAP data says. So for 4th grade, MAP is projected 70.3% proficiency. Make sure it's over. Okay. And then EVOS is projecting 65%. In 5th and 6th grade, they are equal at 53 and 55. In 7th grade, MAP is projecting 65% proficiency and EVOS is projecting 57%. In the 8th grade, MAP is projecting 58% proficiency, EVOS is projecting 74% proficiency. It's important to note, however, that that number is, I'm sorry, that's reading. We'll do math. Math has a little bit different calculation on it, so we'll flip to the next page. The MAP versus EVOS projections. Again, you can see the blue is MAP and the red is EVOS. For fourth grade, it's showing at 58% proficiency. EVOS is showing 49%. Fifth grade math, 70% proficiency. And EVOS is showing 51%. Sixth grade math, they are pretty much neck and neck. One is, math is 51.3% and EVOS is 52%. In seventh grade, math is projecting 63.3%. EVOS is projecting 49. And then in eighth grade, math is projecting 42% and EVOS is projecting 56%. It's important to note that that 56% does not include the eighth grade students who take math 1. You calculate those students into that number, it goes up to 71.7%. Because the eighth graders who take math 1 do not also take eighth grade math on the other sheet. We didn't feel like it was accurate to tell you that we're sitting at 72%. When the more realistic picture is 56. To give you an idea of where this looks, what this looks like in comparison to last year for reading, and I just jotted these down. For reading, we were at 63.3% achievement for grades 3 through 8. This is projecting us right at 60. And then for math, our achievement was 50%. This is projecting us at 51. The next page will show you the MAP actual scores for NEWS versus the MAP national norms. So these are ranking us against the national norms for reading. And you can see that across the board, we are exceeding those national norms except in 8th grade. And that's just a little over a point shy of matching that norm. The next one shows you math.
And again, was the students, in the same grade students in English 1 are not factored into that score. How does that impact the score when we factor those students in?
Well, the 8th graders that take English 1 also take the 8th grade EOG, so we didn't pull those out specifically in that first slide, because they do still take it. It's just the math 1, because there is no EOC in English 1, it's in English 2.
Okay. I understand there's an asterisk that says students in English 1 are not factored into score.
For the math, because the ones who are in math 1 are in English 1.
This was on the reading.
So we must have pulled them out of both, didn't we? Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you for pulling it out.
So is the asterisk not supposed to be there, or the data's not in there? Which one?
Dr.
Not sure.
Schwartzlander's checking.
Oh, she's looking.
Pull it up and look for me real quick. While she does that, though, you can look at where we hit with the national norms in math. First grade exceeded, second grade a little over 2.5 points short. Third grade is a little over a point short. Fourth and fifth grade exceeded. Sixth grade is a little over 8 points short. Seventh grade is under a point short. I'm so sorry, I know what Nicole's doing. I don't want to keep going without her. Thank you. And then in math, they're a little over 2 points short of the national norm.
Can I ask just a quick question? The national norm, is that the national norm for the end of the year, or is that the national norm for midpoint? Midpoint, okay.
And I know we've talked about this a lot, but for folks who don't know what math and EVOS is, can we just give a quick, kind of what they are and how they compare? You want to talk about the
Sure.
data?
So we use math data for benchmarking, and you are parents, so you probably have experienced a lot of math in the remote world and at school. And we administer math beginning, middle, and end of the year, so that we have benchmarks for how students are performing and progressing. EVOS is a different story. EVOS gives us projections based on our students and the students who come to us. We actually had a really great conversation about this the other day, in being able to better understand and explain EVOS. It doesn't track cohorts. So it's hard to say in third grade they were here and in fourth grade they were here, because at our school we are constantly adding students and withdrawing students, and so our population does not remain consistent from year to year. And so it's almost like saying it takes Melissa and all the students like Melissa who score in the same range, and then they take all the Michelles, they take all the James, and they factor in their past performance to project their future performance. EVOS also, in my humble opinion, very clearly shows that we are continuing to struggle with our students who come into our school, because EVOS is almost penalizing us for their lack of instruction of their previous program. Because it's basing their projected score off of their historical performance at the school they were at before they got to us. So the goal is always that we exceed the EVOS expectation. It doesn't mean that we always will, but that's always the goal, is that we will exceed it, because we have so many new students each year who come in and they carry with them that historical experience and data. They are wonderful, but they are lively. They are lively. They take very good care of us. So that's kind of the difference in how we look at those numbers.
Quick question on the EVOS, because I'm probably the greenest when it comes to looking at that. So you're saying that it tracks individually from kids as they're coming in, and that database is, how do they access all that information? I guess it's my
EOGs.
EOGs.
Yeah, EOGs and EOCs.
So they have a unique identifier that they carry with them?
Yes. And they also just released a couple of weeks ago the projections for students throughout the rest of their testing. So like I have an 8th grader or a 7th grader is going to project how they're going to perform, not only on 8th grade EOGs, but on EOCs in high school. The data gets a little wonky though when you have students who've been homeschooled or in private school who've never taken EOGs. That also is a factor in some of these numbers being a little bit off. There's no data coming with the kids if they haven't been in public school. Their best guess is if they've had the past performance, or there's no data because there's nothing to project on. Taking an EOG.
So when they come with no data, is it just like, say their average, or is it, it's just?
There's nothing until they take a test.
Okay.
Yeah. So the longer they've been in the public schools, the more data we can have on them.
Yeah, okay. They're not charged with it at that.
Yeah.
And the map is just gauging based on cohorts.
So we did pull out the English 1 students on the data tracker that you're taking a look at. We had the English 1 students back into the 8th grade English score. Map is showing that we're performing at about a 228 grit score, which is well above the national norm in 8th grade. And with our numbers being so small, I'm sorry, Dr. Blackwell, those 30 students make that much of an impact on the performance of our overall grade levels. So that's a 9-point difference based on 30 students.
Because in 8th grade, we have maybe, 100?
About 75.
75, okay. That's almost
Okay.
Your next slide just shows you, we're always thinking about these numbers, and the question is always, so what are you doing about it, right? What are we doing about it? And one thing that we were real intentional about putting into place was the space for parents to have more access to teachers, which are parent-teacher conferences. We offered them in Q1, and we offered them again last quarter, and I wanted you all to just see the data on that as the number of parent-teacher conferences we were able to hold in each grade level, K-5, and then as a group in 6-12. You can notice a couple of things. Kindergarten dropped. First grade dropped significantly. Second grade dropped significantly. Third grade dropped. Fourth grade went up just a few. Fifth grade went up just a few. And then 6th through 12th grade went up just a few. So I show you this because it's important that we know we're trying to stay connected with our families as best we can, and giving them the space to sign up for conferences and meet with teachers twice a year. In addition to when they ask for conferences outside of this space, and there's always the intent that we are as available and flexible as we can be to meet with families when they ask for a meeting. I asked Dr. Swartzlander to put together some thoughts too, because she's been working very closely with some of the staff on how do we get our numbers where we want them to be. So she's going to go over a couple of things that she has.
So I do wanted to share with you some of the real practical, like boots on the ground things that we are doing. Because the question always is, what are you doing to make things better? And that is all anyone here at these tables want to have. So right now, for the first time in my memory, we have 4 Title I tutors, and they're each working 20 to 28 hours per week, working with our highest needs 3 through 5 students. Our National Junior Honor Society students tutor 2 or more times a week in grades 4 and 5 in both ELA and math, doing real work with the kids. One of our board members, Will Denning, does kindergarten, and they love him and he loves them. It's a beautiful thing. We are maintaining fidelity implementation of our ELA and math curricula. That is going to continue happening. That is a high, rigorous, and very engaging curriculum. We have targeted curriculum assistant placement for all of our students that have high need in ELA and math in 6-8. Our 4th quarter, we implemented Cougar Shines. Cougar Shines is a test-taking strategy and online reading pedagogy that we have adopted here at Noose. And it's a prescribed curriculum that is being reviewed in all opportunity zones, all curriculum assistants, and in core classes. We began that with a professional development on the strategy for teachers, and then we also are implementing SchoolNet, which is provided through NC Ed Cloud, and it mirrors and mimics the way EOG questions are worded, the way that the format is looking, so that the students can go ahead and start accessing the tools and understanding how the test works before sitting down for that. All of our teachers, including some of our PE teachers who have curriculum assistants, are modeling how to do reading online using the Shines strategies during curriculum assistance, and it's an awesome thing to watch, like Coach Van teaching like reading strategies to our kids in curriculum assistance. They're also going to access this year the NC Test platform, which is the actual testing platform. The state has offered released tests on that platform, so the kids are going to be able to go ahead in and engage with that testing environment while still doing review and learning, taking that opportunity to go through and work through the problems that they don't know. Math 1, 3, English 2, and biology all gave the NC check-ins mid-year, and now they're using that data to guide their instruction. Our PLCs in 3-5 have had a continuous focus on student academics, performance, and their areas of need all year long. IXL continues to be aligned with their students' MAP scores and utilize an opportunity zone and curriculum assistance. EOG, EOC questions are being incorporated daily into morning work in all grades 3-8. Monthly observations and feedback sessions are happening specifically in our 3-5 math spaces. And 6-8 has moved heavily into EOG review, and it is the end of March. So I hope that what you can see is that there are real tangible efforts being made to make the needle move. And that is what we are really working on diligently every day. What questions do you have for me?
Is Cougar Shines during Cougar time?
It is during both curriculum assistance, opportunity zone, and core classes.
Okay.
Cougar Shines all day long.
Do we still call it Cougar time?
We call it curriculum assistance now.
Okay.
Or opportunity zone if you're elementary.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you so much for sharing all of that, appreciate it.
Next in your packet, we will see, it is a draft of the risk management assessment plan. This is just currently the assessment. The plan is not yet attached. I'm just sharing this with you all for you all to review it and look over it. I do plan to spend some time digging into this with the risk oversight committee before our April meeting, so that I can fully present this to you all. But for right now, I just wanted you to see it and know that it's a work in progress, but we are not quite ready yet to release it out to the community. So it just takes some time, and all of your spare time. So take a look at it between now and our next meeting. I would appreciate it.
And so, just to make sure we understand, so you anticipate having the risk management oversight committee meet between now and then? Okay, perfect. We can talk about that and then present it for that one. Thank you.
The next item is the summer school presentation, and Ms. Ormiston and Ms. Matthews are going to go through that with you, but you all have slides in front of you that they will be using.
Thank you. So this year, we are going to be implementing summer school in 4th grades, or we're asking for board approval to implement a summer school program in 4th grades 3 through 8. Ms. Matthews is going to give a little bit more detail about 3rd grade specifically, but for 4th through 8th grade, we are going to be focusing on students that are non-proficient on their EOGs. So the students that are non-proficient are going to have given the opportunity by invitation only to attend a summer school program for remediation provided by our 6, 8, and 3, 5 teachers for ELA and math. And at the end of the program, they are going to have the opportunity to retake their EOGs to give them the opportunity to show proficiency. With that, just for you guys' information, the state will take the higher of the 2 scores, and those scores will count towards our proficiency score, but not towards our correct score. So as mentioned, the criteria for that eligibility to attend the summer school program is by invitation only to those students who are non-proficient on the original EOG. So students in 4th and 5th grade and 6th through 8th not proficient in reading or math. And then Ms. Matthews is going to talk about read to achieve students and those requirements for 3rd grade.
3rd grade is a little bit different because it is the state requirement. It's kind of the gateway for independent reading in the state. So basically, with our 3rd graders, we will have summer reading camp, and they are required to do 72 hours. If you'll see when you look at the schedule, the 3rd grade Read to Achieve is a little bit longer school than the 4th through 8th. But our 3rd graders have an opportunity throughout the year to prove that they're independent readers. And the first opportunity is when they take the EOG in the fall, which is the beginning of grade. And if they are proficient, then that shows that they are independent readers. Score a 207 when we're doing math testing. If they score a 207, then that's another way that they can show that they're independent readers. Be proficient on the EOG, and then all of our students that are not proficient on the EOG are able to take the Read to Achieve test, which is a little bit shorter test than the EOG. And the students that are not proficient in any of those will be the students that will be invited to our summer reading camp, which will be for 72 hours. And the time layout for that, for third grade, again, it's a little bit different because it requires more hours, would be that we would start on May 30th and we would finish up on June 28th. They would go to school Monday through Thursday. Teachers have a little bit longer for planning, but the students would be in session from 8 to 12. And then the Read to Achieve test would be given on the 29th after they finish with the summer reading camp. And then from that point, if they don't pass, then we have other ways that they can pass as we start their fourth grade year.
And so with that being said, our 4th through 8th graders are not going to be in summer program for that long because of the requirement for RTA. So for our 4th through 8th grade summer program, we're looking at doing May 30th through June 15th. Same schedule, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 11 for students, and then a little extra time for teachers. And then as well as the 3rd grade, our 4th through 8th grade teachers will be given 4 additional hours to prepare for their classes prior to summer school happening. And I do want to add in here, I attended a DPI summer school training on Monday afternoon. And they said for larger school districts, one of the challenges that they have encountered is that teachers don't have the additional time to plan and prepare for the success of their summer school program. So I felt it was very important for you guys to know that we are able to give that to our teachers, that they do have that extra time to plan and prepare to allow time for our students to have as much remediation as possible. So with all of that, we are asking for your approval for our summer school program. That is a requirement for DPI for our school to have the program this summer. Any questions?
What happens if the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What happens if the student is not proficient in both math and reading? Will they still be able to achieve what they need to achieve during those specific hours versus if it's just math or just reading?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for those students, we're going to have their schedule set up a little bit different than for a student who would just need just math or just reading.
What's the expected number of students that we're preparing for?
Honestly, it all is based off of EOG scores, and that we won't find that out until after the test is done.
And our Read to Achieve, we will know the number once they have taken the Read to Achieve test, because if they don't pass the EOG, they'll take the Read to Achieve. We usually go into summer school with about 17 kids, and we come out with about 7. It's what we had for the past couple of years, somewhere around 7 or 8 kids that would be labeled Read to Achieve going into 4th grade.
What do you mean by coming out at 7?
Okay, so like for instance, when we go into testing for EOG, we might go in with 30 students. I've done that before. And we would come out with 17. All of those 30 that have not yet shown a way to pass their independent reading, they would pretty much we would have 30. Once they took the EOG, we would have some of those students that would pass the EOG. The ones that don't pass the EOG, we do some remediation with them. And then they take the Read to Achieve test, and then coming out of that, let's say, I have we might have 12 or 15 kids, they would be invited to summer reading camp, and you can expect some of those students to also pass the Read to Achieve test, which would take them past their benchmark for independent reading. And then if they don't pass at the end of summer school, they go into 4th grade, and they are given structured reading instruction that is specific to them. Usually our Title I teachers will do that. And then on by October 30th, they take the Read to Achieve test again, which is their final opportunity to be able to pass to show independent reading. And then if they don't pass, then we just continue. They're working with Read to Achieve, working with Title I tutors. By then, you're usually looking to make sure that there's not something else that might be preventing them from being successful.
Summer school program, is that just for existing news kids that are enrolled this year, or does that include incoming students that may be coming from a different school?
We're just the ones that we currently have.
Existing.
Existing.
That's
It's a great question. And typically it's because we don't get student records.
Timely enough to be able to enroll in.
And sometimes we may get a student who actually participates in the district summer school, summer reading camp. Because it pretty much, you can't make them come, but you pretty much let the parents know this is highly recommended because they could be retained. Because what happens if they don't pass, they go to fourth grade with a reading retain label. They're a fourth grader, regular fourth grade, but in Power School, they're reading retained. So it shows that they haven't met the benchmark.
Thank you.
You mentioned that this was required by the state, is that what you said?
So in order for us to have a summer program, DPI requires us to get board approval
Okay.
for the program. So
Okay.
the program is not required for students to attend. It is highly encouraged for them to
I
attend.
think your part comes in approving for us to re-administer the EOG.
And we are budgeting for 15 students per classroom for summer school. That would be the maximum classroom.
And so, sorry, Jason.
Sorry.
He's been waiting. No, I'm just going to follow up to what she said, then you can go. So you're budgeting 15 students per classroom, but you don't know how many classrooms you're going to have yet. Right?
It was 15 per fourth grade ELA, fourth grade math. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 classrooms.
And that's
That's
everybody.
That's 4 through 8,
Correct.
and then the read to achieve is separate.
And we usually, like for read to achieve, it's usually 1 to 12, like no more than 12 students per teacher.
Got it. Okay. You're up. Not me.
So I'm guessing the reason for no high school was just lack of numbers on the high school end of things for summer school? Is that why no summer school option?
There is credit recovery for math too.
Yes, that is the only subject that we're able to provide for
And just, and that's just because of numbers?
and staff interest.
Yeah, I think it's important, I'm so sorry,
No, you go ahead.
to note that we have sent out interest forms the last 2 years trying to get summer school program started. And one of the biggest struggles we had was finding enough teachers who wanted to do it over the summer, right? And rightfully so, right? But we have a very excited and engaged group of staff members who really want to spend some summer time working with our kids. And so that really has made a big difference in us being able to offer 8 classrooms to do this.
That was going to be one of my questions, is do we know we can staff that many classrooms?
So we're very excited.
Yeah.
We're very
The
thankful
interest
for
says
that.
yes, they will take it.
Sure.
And Ms. Samantha Dunn is working in tandem with Ms. Matthews, and Ms. Karen Conley and I are working together for 16.
Okay.
As far as getting curriculum together and remediation strategies.
Other questions?
I'm just going to say I move to approve the summer school program as presented tonight.
Second.
Great. All right. Any discussion? I will call the roll to approve the summer school as presented. Nicole?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Benji?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll sign that for you.
The last thing on the list this evening is the CIPA compliant internet
Will we do
safety
this now or do we
policy. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do
Wonderful,
it.
that's fine. It had to be listed under new business just to
Got it.
make everybody happy.
No worries.
So I will make this as brief as I can, although I will be happy to take whatever questions you want. A little background, most of this CIPA is Child Internet Protection Act. Most of this has been covered under existing policies. We've already had the acceptable use policy or handbook, things like this, but the state and federal government has requested that it's spelled out for all the schools everywhere in its own little specific policy. So that's what we're doing tonight. It should be in your packets. I'm going to read just the introduction. I'm not going to read the whole policy, but I will read the introduction for the benefit of people in the audience and at home. So it is the policy of this charter school to A, prevent user access over its computer network to or transmission of inappropriate material via internet, electronic mail, or other forms of direct electronic communications. B, prevent unauthorized access and other unlawful online activity. C, prevent unauthorized online disclosure, use, or dissemination of personal identification information of minors. And D, comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act. The three main points in this is covering the access to inappropriate material. Briefly, we have several filtering systems in place. We have one that is actually provided by the state through MCNC, which is our internet service provider as well, as a filter known as Zscaler. We also have a firewall, which they just upgraded for us, which is also provided to protect from outside intrusion. I have several other filters in place, both on campus and for off-campus school-owned Chromebooks, so that when students try to, the ones who check out devices, if they try to access at home, like some have found out to their chagrin, they're not able to get there, and we do actively monitor those. So that covers the filtering as far as the access to instant information. As far as the online protection part of it, we have filtering in place that scans student emails for inappropriate content, as well as social emotional issues. They have found issues such as suicidal thoughts, threats, tendencies like that. The guidance department has access. They get reports on all of those things. As soon as one of those happens, they go off. And there's all the guidance, as well as myself, is notified. And we have several conversations, including over the weekend, about, did you see this? Let's get this handled. And then the last thing, that actually covers under the monitoring as well. We also use several password systems in place to protect access to student records. Some of these are mandated and enforced by the state, such as through PowerSchool, which is our student information system. Others are through our emails and things like that. Does anybody have any questions? I don't want to get into too much micro detail because you don't want to tell everybody everything you're doing and how you're doing it, because students and people are very creative about Googling how to get past things. But if I'm happy to entertain and answer any questions anybody has on this, including from our audience, just I'll answer anything you'd like.
Interesting.
All right.
I'll just add as a comment, as a parent, don't know how you do it, but I realize that what we have in place in the past has been very, very successful, and I've been impressed with it, so thank you.
Multiple layers of filtering.
Yes, yes.
On a little private anecdotal thing, one of my favorite things is one of the filters puts up type in password to bypass, and it actually shows me who's tried to bypass it and what password they've tried to use. I was actually looking through it this weekend, and it's entertaining, some of the passwords these kids have tried to use. And open secret, which not so open since it'll be on the recording, there is no password to bypass it. It will not let you bypass it. I have not set up the system so you can bypass it. But it is very entertaining to see all the stuff going through that. Oh, this person, I wonder if that's their own password. It's very entertaining, and some of the expletives that people have tried to use as their password, that I don't think they realize I can see what they're typing in.
I have heard my own children groan and say, "Oh, Brad." I'm like, first of all, you can't call him Brad. Second of all, he's doing it for a reason. So don't do either one of those things.
I take a lot of pride in that. I actually had a student this weekend who was, with the new emerging technology, I'm not going to get into much detail, but with new emerging technology, if you've seen the internet, you know some of the things that are coming out, and not all the filters are up to date. So I was going back and forth. I was getting alerts Saturday night, and I was up to about 11:30 Saturday night, blocking sites actively, like, oh, that one's gotten through, let's fix that. So no system is perfect, but we do have a lot of safety guards in place, and we are constantly adding and modifying as we go. So my ask is to adopt the policy that is in front of you. This is basically, I'd love to say I authored the whole thing, but this was the suggested verbiage from the FTC and the FCC. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that?
I just want to say, I think the real lesson tonight is to make sure you keep Brad on your good side.
I know too much about too many people now.
Yes. And we we bring parents in on those conversations with what their students have been up to in Google.
Right.
Those are fun.
I'll make a motion to approve the policy as
Thank you.
presented.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to approve the policy as written and a second. Any discussion?
Does this change any of our other existing policies?
No, ma'am, this is just clarifying for CIPA purposes.
Okay.
All of these policies have been in place for as long as I've been here. I mean, it took me a few months once I onboarded 8 years ago, to put all of this stuff in place. And as new things come out, we keep adding stuff. But none of this changes what we do.
Does it replace?
It does not replace anything. I mean, like I said, this is the why, the how will remain trade secrets for a lot of things. But as new technologies emerge, I always add and adapt. And
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
When will you do the training? And how will that be?
I'm actually working on that. We used to cover that when we had the technology classes for elementary school, middle school. Ms. Jenkins used to cover it for the elementary school, and Mr. Ward covered it for the high school. And then COVID has happened and all sorts of things. So I'm working on some new materials. I have gone in years past and we changed a lot during COVID, so I've got to change some of our processes. Some of the things like our students used to not get emails to the outside world until they hit high school. That changed when COVID hit because all of a sudden we need to be able to get passwords from certain programs that teachers are using and things like that. So I've got it. That's one of my summer projects is to revamp how we do that training. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I will call the roll to vote on the motion currently on the table to approve the CIPA policy as presented. Nicole?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jason? Benji?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
That concludes my superintendent report, but I'm just going to go right on into the financial, if that's all right.
Oh, perfect.
Because I know I'm next.
That would be great, I guess. I was like, we had one more paper.
One more paper, and that is the March financial report. On the back side of it, I believe, is the February report, just so you can have both of them. I'm just going to go over the most recent one. This is as of February 28th. Our budgeted surplus and our budgeted local revenue remain the same. Budgeted surplus is at $167,357.17. Our current surplus is $208,215.11. The local revenue that we have received is $909,083.28. I've put an asterisk beside that because I want you to note down at the bottom. We're always asking and talking about, are we up to date? Have we received the funds? And so I wanted you all to see, and this is with the help of Amanda Heifel, that right now we should have about $931,000, and we've got $909,000. So right now they're coming in at the rate that we expect them to. That difference is probably one county that hasn't sent in their funds, but it's a smaller county with smaller numbers, maybe Wilson. So you can see that we're on track to have all of our funds received well before we close out our year on June 30th. So the remaining funds that we have yet to receive are a little over $700,000. The next four are just the account balances of money that we have in the bank, and you can see the operations, retirement, contingency funds sitting at a total of a little over $3 million total.
Thank you.
And that concludes all of my reports for this evening.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Blackwell? Thank you to all of you for presenting and sharing all the information and for all the work that has gone into the preparation for everything, and so we really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Jane, I'm so sorry. Let me just briefly interrupt.
Oh, yeah.
We had a fantastic event last week that we didn't even speak about. And you can look around and see the reason why we're kind of sitting in a different space is because this whole section was transformed into an art gallery. And you can look above you, those are actual origami cranes that were folded by the kids. There's 850 of them.
It's supposed to be 1,000.
She wanted 1,000, don't tell Ms. Edwards that I told you there weren't. You can see that's kindergarten art, that's second grade art, they had pottery, it was
The
magical.
community loom is on the back,
Oh, nice.
where the kindergartners actually made that community loom. They each did a little section for themselves. They had their turns. We had great pottery that was in here. She was afraid her pottery was going to get broken. She even called down Dr. Blackwell's dad for touching the pottery.
Yeah, he made the mistake of touching one and I thought she was going to smack him on the head.
That was just
So it
one
was your
thing.
father who did that.
The art show
We
was
heard
just
about that.
one thing that went on here last week. We had third grade had their science fair projects on the first floor, fourth grade on the second, fifth grade on the third. Every classroom had something going on. Our second graders did their wax museum. They were live for 30 minutes, and then they had, Dr. Schwartzlander had videoed them so that you could just put your QR code in and you could see it. They were wonderful, wonderful projects. We had, in the gym, we had our K-5 students were singing. I have never, since I've been here because of COVID, I've not seen that many parents. It was completely full. I mean, it was, and we did 2 grade levels at a time. K1 performed together, 2, 3, and 4, 5. It was I have gotten a lot of feedback from the parents about how great it was. It was the students, and we've done, like, I've said this all along, we have done student-led conferences, but this was like the best student-led conferences because they were involved in every part of the campus. And I know I'm leaving out something, but it was a great night. The kids were just so happy. You have to share your story about your baby.
Della Ray was in the Wax Museum, and she was the great American historian, Taylor Swift. And she comes to me that night, and, you know, it's been a super long day, and just so much excitement and joy. She comes to me and she says, "Mommy, will you lay with me tonight for a little bit?" I said, "Yeah, you all right?" She said, "I got a lot of feelings." I said, "Okay, so what's going on?" And she said, "Today was the best day. I don't want it to end."
Oh.
And I told them, that's not a stamp of approval from a kid that's tough to impress. I don't know what is. So,
Sounds like we're getting back to normal.
Yes.
Yes.
You better knock on some wood.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
Sorry.
No, that's a great story. It's a great story. All right, thank you. That was all wonderful. Standing committee reports, our governance committee.
So we did meet to talk about board recruitment. And so that's in the process now. We've started to get applications, and what I'm going to do for the board, I'm going to create a folder and just put all of those applications in there so everyone will have access to them. Kind of the timeline, we're looking to close the applications for new board members on April the 7th. And I believe, Fred, the application's on our website.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And of course, anyone can also email me as well if they want to get one. And then we'll close that. Board interviews are tentatively set for April 22nd. And the hope is that we can have as many board members there as possible to be part of that. And then we'll probably end up calling maybe a special meeting in May to get the new board members approved and get them trained so they can start by July 1.
Thank you for all the work. And if anyone knows of anyone who would like to join the board, feel free, please let them know that we are seeking candidates and that any of us would be happy to talk with anybody who's considering it. and just to give more information about what it's like. So, any questions for Michelle? All right. Financial Oversight Committee. Jason, do you have anything in addition to what she showed?
Okay. Don't we have to talk about longevity?
Go for it.
So, I was like, wait a minute, I know, I had a feeling that there was a lot more there to talk about, so.
I thought so.
Okay, all right. So we met on February 20th, Finance Committee, to talk about longevity bonus structure that was discussed during the general meeting. And during that meeting, we had some presentations from Dr. Blackwell and Ms. Highfield about kind of how the other charter schools do it and how other charter schools don't necessarily, because we've paid attention to the feedback that we've gotten about, hey, other charter schools pay, you get paid more if we go here and work here, we go there. But what they don't know is, or what they don't say is that a lot of that does not include benefits and retirement, which we do have at New. So when you take apples to apples comparison, it is a much more commensurate kind of package that we have here. So after reviewing some of that, I would like to ask the board to approve the longevity bonus structure as presented at the January board meeting and discussed with the Finance Committee in February meeting.
Could we maybe have a brief review of what that was? Especially because 2 of the 6 of us weren't at that meeting.
And I immediately looked at Amanda and Amanda was like, no!
I'm sorry, but there were only 4 of us at the meeting, and so I feel like,
Is that proposal in the drive?
Is that proposal in the drive?
Is that proposal in the January folder?
It is in the January folder. It's, I think, linked to the superintendent's report.
I'm just saying it would be good to know what we're voting on.
I can give a generic overview.
That would be lovely.
That would be all right.
That would be perfect, thank
If
you.
you want specific numbers, you'll give me a second to pull it all up. But we, as we've all discussed in lots of meetings lately, the longevity piece, the teachers returning and the staff returning to work and not going to other industries, especially coming out of COVID, has been one of our biggest concerns. And so that's the target for us on this particular bonus. So employees that have been with the school for maybe a year or 2 off on levels, but like 0 to 3, we're at a certain bonus level, 4 to 6 at a certain bonus level, and so forth on up. So that the people who have been here longer and continue year over year to provide service for news get a little larger bonus than the ones who are returning for their second year, maybe in new charter. The total, when I ran all of the individual numbers, it's roughly $100,000, a little over $100,000. You have to factor in taxes, not retirement, because it's longevity, so that's a benefit to the school for our budget. But it's going to run roughly 120 or a little less thousand to the school for this year, and we have confirmed that it will fit into this year's budget.
So it's considered, it's a bonus, right? So it's not, it won't be calculated into their regular pay, which is why we don't have to pay into retirement and everything for it, right?
It will all be packaged into one payout, hopefully with a payroll, so they get it all in one swoop, a little bigger payroll that time. But retirement will not be factored out of this money because it's not earned income, it's a bonus for returning income. And that's just a semantics that the state, certain things are retirement, certain things are not, longevity is not. So in this situation, that's a bonus for the school.
And this is actually a better benefit to the employee as well.
It is, well, I feel like it is.
And this is for years of service to news charter.
To news charter school. I know there was a question, at some point, there have been lots of discussions, but employees that are coming in brand new that may have 20 years of experience are already getting paid on a whole quite considerably more than a brand new starting teacher. So they're already receiving that in salary. This is saying, thanks for pouring your time in the news. Right. So.
And I'm sorry, I think we talked about this, but this is paid once and when?
So
is it at the end of the year? Is it?
The goal for right now, the original proposal, well, for going forward,
Sure.
if we were to proceed with this year over year, one would be paid probably half of it in October, maybe the other half in April or May, right? As a thanks for returning and thanks for sticking with us.
Okay.
At this point, we're at the end of March, so
Sure.
my proposal tonight would be let's go ahead and put this in Friday's payroll, as far as I'm concerned. They can have it before spring break. Thank you very much for pouring your time in and come back after spring break refreshed and ready to EOG and EOC out this year and give them a little boost to finish the year. That would be my recommendation, but that's your call.
And that's not a problem?
Not a problem.
With getting it all
Not a problem.
in there, okay.
So, and not having the recommendation in front of me, so folks who joined News this year,
Would not receive this bonus.
how about folks who joined News last year?
Ones that joined News last calendar, or last school year, would receive a bonus this year, yes. But anybody brand new for 22-23 would not receive this bonus.
But the hope is.
But they will if they stay.
Yeah.
Correct. If this becomes a year over year, at least till we come out of the teacher shortage and work into whatever other bonus structures, but right now, this is what's needed for our staff, to have a little incentive to stay with News.
And have we looked at, and I know the purpose of this is not to get us up equal to like a county employee equivalent salary, but have we looked, how much closer is this getting us to getting the pay as the same as the teachers across the street?
It's getting closer, but I don't know that we can get, well, I don't know that we can ever get all the way there, but it gets us closer. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's our goal, is to try to continue to move the bar higher and get it closer.
So this would be paid annually in October?
So,
Half in October.
I think that was what, I think Jamie recommended that in
Yeah,
January.
that
I think
was
you
what I
had us
was-
maybe October, I want to say October and April, maybe is sticking in my head, but,
It,
I mean, it's flexible.
yeah, it doesn't matter. I think originally you guys were talking about paying it halfway through, and I think we talked about paying it earlier and later so that it sort of encourages people, thank you for coming back and thank you for staying for the year. I like that. Other questions?
What happens for a teacher that, say, leaves News, but then comes back later? They start all over again, or is it cumulative years?
For this purpose, for these numbers, I ran current start dates, which would have pulled any newest start date.
Okay.
I can quickly think of one person that would affect, maybe two, I can think of one that it would affect. So I could do it either way. You want to tell me your pleasure, and I will.
That's a really good question. And I don't.
It
That
is.
date versus latest time. Yeah.
But I mean, again, if somebody left and wanted to come back and they left on good terms, I don't see why we wouldn't count those years of service in. It might even be beneficial. I mean, encourage people to come back.
All right. I can do either way. I just ran the report that said, current hire rate, so.
I wouldn't think that it would be a significant
It is
in
not.
terms of moving the total amount, but I do think that it could encourage people, and certainly they would have to have left on good terms for us to consider bringing them back
Bringing them
anyway.
back, right.
Yeah,
Do we need to amend? Well, we haven't made a motion.
we haven't made a motion yet, so,
Another question for you.
Yes, yes,
before we move to
absolutely.
the voting part. Looks like the way this is written, this is built into perpetuity, right? It's not, there's no time horizon, there's no window.
No, not the way.
Should we consider a time fence instead of making this obligation that goes on forever, and then maybe build this bonus into salaries in the future? Let this be a 2-year consideration, and then we can come back and look. I know we talked about performance bonus, longevity bonus. Should we make this a time horizon? Leave the plan as is, make a time horizon instead of no date, no end date.
Well, if we could do that, or if we liked it, we could just amend it and turn it into a
Annual
structure.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Benji, but I kind of want to put something in place so people don't feel like we could pull the rug out from underneath them at any given time with an expiration date on it. I do think that we could go back if we wanted to do some, which I think what you're talking about is a good things to consider, that we can always amend that at a later date. But I understand, but I do think it's important to put that commitment forward.
so that they can count on, if they stay, they can count on that. And also in
From a
view-
competitive standpoint.
Yeah, well, and also just for people, for planning purposes, right? Like everybody, plans for, so they'll have a sense of how much money they're gonna make each year. Question for you and/or Dr. Blackwell, that sort of goes to Benji's question too. Aren't we also still talking and planning and trying to come up with alternative, additional ways to sort of compensate? And so I think in the context of those conversations, Benji, I think it could very easily be that this morphs into something else, but we don't take it away necessarily, which is, I think, kind of what you were suggesting. Is that a fair characterization?
So, based on conversations that we've had.
Okay.
And along those lines, Jane, for those who want to know, if we wanted to pay everybody today the same that Johnson County Schools pays, the state plus the supplement, how much would we have add to our budget, our yearly budget, to make that happen?
Is that,
I don't, we talked about this in finance as maybe being something that would not necessarily benefit future potential teachers.
she's talking about an overall number that
I
needs to
know.
add to the budget?
Yeah, no. I mean, if you want to know, we'll tell you, but it's.
The answer won't benefit future teachers.
Yeah. It's significant.
Okay.
Yeah. It's significant.
Can I ask, why do we pick a specific number versus a percentage for a certain number of years, this percentage of the salary versus just a specific stated number?
Say that again, Michelle.
So instead of saying, okay, so someone with 0 to 3 years of service gets, well, some places you don't get a longevity until you've been there for 5 years, but, a certain number of years you've been with News and you get a certain percentage of your salary versus $1,000 or.
So for this particular bonus, we were trying to keep it level to service. So if we've got a teacher that's been with us for 3 years, one teacher maybe came to us brand new, so they've been working for 3 years, and so their salary may be at this level. And then you've got a teacher that taught in the county for 20 years and then came to us, and they're at a salary of this level for 23 years. The longevity bonus is more in line to thank you for being here for the same number of years, compared to, oh, well, you get a percent and you get a percent, so your bonus is this, and yours is this for being with us for 3 years.
Okay.
So it was more, it's just to kind of level the field of thank you for your time at News.
So that everyone who has been here for X number of years
Right.
gets the same bonus,
Right.
rather than, because really, I think what they also took into account is that the teacher who worked for 20 years in the public schools already has a higher base salary because of the 20 years. So you would actually be sort of like
Right, yeah, I see what
doubly
you're saying, yeah.
rewarding, and it would more likely be looked at as penalizing the newer teachers, I think.
Makes sense.
I mean, you could look at it that way.
Either right.
Yeah. Good question. Other questions? See, that wasn't so hard.
Well, but it's important for us to look at it, review, and make
Exactly,
sure.
it was very important, right? Yeah. Okay, now, would you like to have us have an opportunity
Do you
to,
want to vote on this one independently of something else then, or open? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll shut up, go ahead.
I was going to open the floor for a motion on this. Was there something else that?
Well, we'll talk about something else to say. We do have a second
Okay.
motion, but,
Okay.
so, is there any other conversation?
Or an amendment to this to put a time fence, a 2-year, 3-year time fence onto this instead of it being in perpetuity? Or do we need to vote and approve before we put an amendment to the motion? I'm concerned about putting a open-ended financial commitment on the school with us not having that's a burden that we don't know. Right now, we know we can cover this. In the future, we don't know if we can cover that.
But, so, trying to
Well, I mean, he could amend it, but, you know, we can put it on the amendment.
Well, we don't have a
We don't have
motion.
anything
We don't have a
yet.
motion yet.
It's still discussion right now. I
So,
just-
yeah, this is good. So if we put, but still, we could always, no matter what gets added to it later on, we can always amend it then, right?
We
Yes.
could.
And then it would, then put a timestamp. And we would do it, I would hope, gosh, I hope as a board,
That
we're
we can do this
responsible
forever.
enough to do, that we can do it forever. But
Right.
if something is wonky and God forbid something happens, that we as a board would be responsible enough to talk about it early enough to prepare teachers for the fall. Like, we're gonna know and enough in advance to be able to prepare if something, God forbid, bad happens.
And I also believe that Dr. Blackwell and Amanda Heifel will keep us posted on those, if and when that were to happen.
It's also important to know that we will be presenting the 23-24 budget in April, but there is a bonus line to cover this for next year.
Okay,
Well, and anything subject to availability funds anyway.
right.
So if the-
And that was written on the initial
Right.
proposal. There is an asterisk on anything I put out that has anything to do with bonus, subject to funding.
Right, that's a given, that's,
And I really like the idea that our teachers can count on this, that our employees can count on this and know that, that our intention is to pay this until or unless we can't afford to. And if we can't afford to, then that's a separate conversation. But I would hope that, I think it's important. I think it's important for our current teachers, especially the teachers who've been here for a long time. And I think it's important from, you know, when you think about sort of recruiting and retaining high-quality employees and teachers specifically, this is, I think, going to help with both of those. It'll help us to retain, hopefully, the teachers who are already here, but it'll also help us recruit at a time when it's extremely difficult to recruit teachers. So, I mean, I think, given that that asterisk is on there, I would be comfortable with leaving it, you know, open-ended as in perpetuity until or unless.
Do we need to put anything in there about when the, for example, for the teacher that leaves and comes back, that it begins from the,
In my motion.
Okay. Okay.
And go for, well, feel free to change the motion as needed, Michelle. So-
Yeah, well, so here's what'll happen. I'll open the floor, if everyone's okay, I'll open the floor for a motion and a second, and then we will have time for discussion again after the motion,
All right,
before we vote.
So I move that we approve the longevity bonus structure as presented in the January board meeting with the addition of language of a teacher who would like to return being included in that longevity bonus pay, as long as they left in good standing.
and
You
their
know,
time,
include their
and their
service.
time begins
To
from
the
their
right to
return.
return.
No, the other way, I think.
Include their previous
original
service.
hire.
Include their previous.
That's
Yeah,
what
their
we
original.
need.
That
You
is
heard
that what
that
you're saying?
includes period of service, prior period of service.
I don't want to throw a wrench in, but it says that it's all payable in October, and we're talking about paying it twice.
And the first one says payable in January as
All
well.
right, well then, let's just don't say off the January approval.
Thank
then.
you. As presented, can we say as presented?
As presented
Because-
tonight.
There we go.
Sorry.
Not sure what we presented
Nobody-
tonight.
Okay, what do you have so far? We'll wordsmith it.
I have motion approved longevity bonus structure as presented in January with additional language that teachers who would like to return to news. That's all I got.
Paul, say your part about the accrued time for that piece. Let's get that piece done.
longevity is based on time accrued, overall time accrued.
Yes.
Eligibility is not restricted to, is
For
not
cumulative
restricted
service to
to
discharge.
continuous service.
Right, yes, to cumulative, not continuous. Yeah.
Cumulative service to discharge.
No, it was cumulative, not continuous.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you
It's
what,
going to be a long motion.
nobody ever nominate me to be secretary. So
Got it.
and then we do need to change. I would
So I would just say payroll to 12A.
Melissa's got that part written out now, she's working with that.
Oh, perfect.
Do you have to include the payout date in the actual motion?
So payable,
Wouldn't
I-
think so.
You have to what now, Brad?
You shouldn't have to include a payout date in the actual motion.
no.
You're just approving that they're doing, that the school has got their permission to do it.
Except for the fact that the January.
Yeah,
January,
January,
it
it
says,
does say.
so that's
So
why,
the January date that we had in the January proposal has been changed to an April payout, and then subsequent years still remains October. So the first payment this year would be for this current school year. would be in
Actually,
April.
but it's both.
but it's both times.
Both
So
times.
what it said in the original proposal was that they would get the full payment in October, and they're gonna divide it into 2 payments. One in October and one in
May.
I don't know that it matters when, as much as
Amended
it
to
matters
say
that
we
it's
pay
paid
determined by school.
in 2 payments, right?
It matters to teachers, so they.
I want to ask the
Well,
finance.
that's, no, I meant in the motion.
It's authorized, you don't have to direct how it's gonna be paid.
So as long as we
Yeah.
don't say, I think take out the part that says as presented in the January.
Take it out.
Take
Yeah,
that part
straight
out.
out.
But then what are you referencing? How do we know what this bonus structure even is?
Right, we have an update that says January, so.
Oh my gosh, y'all, we got to approve this tonight.
Yeah, we gotta,
We have, yeah, we do. We do, okay.
The timing of the payment as determined by the school system, school administration, we're approving the allocation of funds. Estimate is 100 to 125K. I think that's the part that we approve.
Right.
We don't manage the school, we allow the school to manage the bonus program. We just, the allocation of 100 to 125K.
Okay.
right, so then I don't even know that, it'll be up to the school about the rehire.
And the
And
That's
commercial
all-
service.
yeah, that's all
I'm
program
saying, so we don't
definitions.
even need any of that, I don't think, in this
That's-
plan.
We don't need it to make a motion and approve it, but I sure
Yes.
would, and I'd like to mention that I sure would hope our leadership will come back and report that out to us so we can make sure that it's being spent appropriately.
And the teachers know when it will come, because I think that that's important.
I'm gonna read Jason's motion. A motion to approve longevity bonus structure as presented in January with additional language that teachers who would like to return to news. Longevity is based on overall time accrued,
Two copies.
and not based on continuous service. Also additional language at school, determine allocation of funds.
No, it's based on cumulative service. I don't even think you need that in there because I think that was just really a question. kind of-
Jason, would you like me to
can
remove
spare-
that from your motion?
Yes.
Do you want to state your motion?
Yeah.
I don't know what it needs to be. My wife will tell you that I'm never succinct either, so there's that.
Well, then neither am I, so,
Everyone's
just-
telling you how to make your
I'm
motion,
telling
Jason.
you. It was real easy when the January spreadsheet would have been right, so now it's not. So do we just need to make a motion to approve the longevity bonus
Funding levels.
funding levels to be, are you writing? You need to sign. This ain't coming back again, ladies. Approve the longevity bonus structure, say it again, Michelle.
The longevity bonus structure.
Period.
As administered by the school? Is that the right way to say it, to give
Sure,
it
that
the
works.
blanket?
Yeah.
Is that, but what?
What longevity bonus structure?
That was part of the
presented in.
Presented in January.
January.
Do we have to reference that?
Yes, I think we will.
Yes.
the funding levels from January.
The funding levels from January.
Yes, the funding levels for, yeah.
Okay, the motion is to approve longevity bonus structure funding levels as presented in January.
Lovely. Do we have a second?
Thank you, Nicole.
Second.
Wonderful. Discussion? All right.
Question.
Yes, exactly. Hearing none, I will call the roll to vote on the motion that is currently on the table that I won't repeat. Nicole?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Benji?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
So this one will be much easier. I hope.
Oh, okay.
So,
I knocked on wood, it's okay.
so we also, in the finance committee, we talked about, it was brought up that we had a reserve funds for a facilities contingency fund that is voted on every year for $100,000 as needed. And instead of us having to approve that every year, the finance committee would like to recommend that there's a kind of a line item for $100,000 for a reserve facilities fund to always be there. So for example, if $17,000 gets spent this year, then $17,000 is moved back over to bring it, to keep it to that $100,000. So there's only $100,000 there, and we just don't have to go back year after year to approve it. It's a revolving credit, so to speak, for facilities. And some of the things that have been done is like the replacement underpinning on some of the mobiles, new security cameras, replacing ramps, RhinoWare installation, things like that that are needed to be done that the school should have the ability to do with this line.
Questions?
If I could comment, thank you for letting us have that cushion the last few years. We have not ever needed to tap into it, but knowing that we have that ability gives us the freedom to go ahead and do some projects that we know that we need to do as summer gears in to be prepared for the next school year and to make our campus safer.
Thank you. Hearing none, I will open the floor for a motion.
So moved to approve the 100,000. What are we?
Here, let's see if this will work for everybody tonight. So the finance committee we would like to make a motion to have the school use up to $100,000 of reserve funds as a facilities contingency fund to cover facilities projects that might have a greater expense than reflected in the annual budget.
Beyond what is reflected in it. Can you read it again to me?
The school would use up to $100,000 of the reserve funds as a facilities contingency fund to cover facilities projects that might have a greater expense than reflected in the current budget.
Maintain.
And to maintain on an annual basis. Thank you. See, I was much better that time, wasn't I?
It was something complicated. All right, you got the motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I will call the roll to vote on the motion currently on the table for the facilities line item. Nicole?
Aye.
Okay. Michelle?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Benji?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries. Anything else, sir?
Nothing for me. Is there anybody finance
yes.
stuff there, right?
Yep, I think we're moving on. Risk Management Committee, did you guys meet or are you going to meet?
We have not met. The first step for us was to get the school's risk assessment. Now that we have that, we'll start meeting and address the assessment, build up the plan to go with the assessment.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll look forward to hearing from you next month. The Ad Hoc Committees, Facilities Committee.
You want me to or you want to? I'm super giddy about this one. So this was so that everybody knows that there's a separate facilities committee. I'm trying to make sure that our parents and people online know there's a separate facilities committee that helped build this building years ago and helped kind of get News Charter off the ground.
You say committee,
Board. It is a board, sorry, that is external to News. And so we went as a facilities committee to their board meeting and talked about our needs. There's been a lot of talk and there's been a lot of knowing that we need another building. We've got a lot of old modulars. They gave us some information of how we can move forward with that. While we don't have anything to bring tonight, we are working behind the scenes to bring something to a future meeting to talk about a new elementary building. So that I'm like I said, I'm super excited about that, and there's some real exciting potential funding out there for it as well.
Yay, that is great news.
Anything you want to add, Diane?
I anticipate that when we talk about the 23-24 budget in April, it will be in conjunction with asking board approval for Super 4.
Awesome.
So we can expect to hear something in it.
No.
All right. Strategic planning did not meet, correct, NG?
No.
Okay. We had no unfinished business. The only thing under new business was CIPA plan that we've already covered.
I had one more for new business. if I could.
Sure.
Wanted to talk about this as a group, and I'll just share this. Where we currently are right now for the salaries and wages budget, we have a current overage of $256,303.40. So my motion is I move to allocate $100,000 from the salaries and wages line item to be utilized as a performance-based bonus for the new charter school staff for the current 2022-2023 school year. So that is my motion to be considered.
Will you repeat that, please?
I move to allocate $100,000 from the salaries and wages line item overage, budget overage, to be utilized as a performance-based bonus for the new charter school staff for the 2022-2023 school year. And where we stand currently, 8 out of 12 months is $256,303.40 is the current overage for that line item, salaries and wages.
I'm sorry, did
8
you
out of
say
12.
performance-based?
Performance-based bonus.
Questions?
Do we have to take the second on the motion and then have a conversation, or do you?
Oh, yes,
You'll have to have a
yes.
second
Yes,
before we
second.
discuss.
All right, I'll second, because I want to talk more about it.
Okay, now discussion. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of want to hear from, like, that sounds very good, but I need to hear more, I guess, from school folks about what that would look like with a robust evaluation. Like, how do we award that bonus on performance, I guess? Anybody?
Is this news to school?
It's probably news to everybody. That was just me looking in the parking lot this afternoon and saying, hey, there is extra work that has been done by the staff this year. And the reason we have this is because we have open positions. So the open positions, the work for those open positions has had to be done by someone. The work's still getting done. So I'm just trying to reallocate that and use the money that is available that we'd already budgeted and approved to be able to compensate the people who are doing the work.
So are you talking about, like, based on not just testing, but you're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's the criteria, yeah.
Well, the how, I want to leave that all up to the school. Our part is just to say, hey, the funding is available. So the how it is paid out is determined totally by school, not by us. We just say the money's available, the work's getting done, the people that's doing the work is the ones that's here. So can we take this $100K that is a portion of the overage just for that salaries line item and utilize that for the current staff?
And that's the vacant positions, you're talking about vacant positions that have not paid out salary, right?
Well, the reason we have an overage here is because this is what we allocated for, this is how many people we allocated for.
Yeah, that's fine.
And there's overages.
Just making sure I ask the question, not assuming.
Yes, well, that's where it has to come from.
So is it performance-based or is it like extra duty pay? Or is it?
I might would frame it as extra duty, because I'm just thinking we do have an extra duty pay line. There's a certain percentage of funds that they get for an additional class they take on. And I can see us taking those funds and increasing that amount.
Right.
Is that what you were talking about?
No, I was going performance-based.
So like-
Reward people for, their performance bonuses, their reviews. If somebody has a good review, then they get extra funds based upon that.
So not tied to like student performance, but actually tied to
Personal performance.
personal performance,
That way,
like
everybody has an
evaluations.
opportunity. Yes, just employee evaluations for everybody. Because if you do student performance, you limit the number of students or teachers or staff that can be eligible. This is, everybody's got a performance review, Did they do good? Where do they rank in that? And then allocate that available money based on that performance review.
So you're saying take the teacher performance rubric that we use to assess the staff
Right.
as
And
our
then
framework for.
Use that to spread the money
Yes,
out
understood.
among those.
Okay.
Okay, so then it's.
And you're
So there is
talking about-
criteria.
Criteria.
The criteria would be the performance.
Performance reviews, existing performance reviews.
Okay.
Because if you do it by student performance, you're going to leave out people. So if you go by teacher review, performance review, staff reviews, then you have, everyone has an opportunity to receive a bonus.
Right, sure.
And you're talking about just the 100, or approximately 100,000 from this budget? or-
2022, 2023 school year, budget year.
Does that take into account, Benji, the monies that we were talking about going for the bonuses?
No, that does not. So if you take this and remove the 100K for the
Bonuses,
bonus that we talked
This
about, the
still is- that
longevity bonus,
still
you
is
still
left over.
have 156K.
after the longevity.
Correct.
Where's the longevity bonus? Where's that coming from?
There's not a separate line item for that, is there? It would come out
No,
of salaries and
it's broken
wages.
out of salaries.
Yeah, so it would come out of the same line. So you take 256 minus, roughly 100 to 125K that Amanda had spoke about, and this would be out of the 156 that was left.
Are you prescribing an amount?
Yeah.
You said 100,000.
100K.
Are you prescribing an amount per
No,
person?
that is up to the school to decide, up to administration to determine how to allocate that funding.
I think that gets into, you're prescribing, like for instance with longevity, you're prescribing the amount in the budget, you're authorizing the money. I wonder if you're in a situation here, and I'm all for it, but are you getting into some gray area here on somebody being able to say, well, I'm going to give somebody here 3 times as much, and somebody, you're leaving some of it to be
Well, I think
subjective.
administration would come back with.
That's
would
what I-
create a proposal on how they would do that.
That's exactly what I'm asking about for. That's what I'm thinking, that it should be a.
To me, that's below the line, that's not our part of it, I think the school, we trust the school administration to develop the method for paying out that amount.
I do too, but I thought we were kind of on that ledge of HR decision approved by the board versus delegated kind of thing that we've talked about before. But if everybody's comfortable with it, I'm not going to be uncomfortable with it. But I'm just kind of wondering, is that one of those things you come back and say, here's a list of it, great.
But I think the administration would have to bring back that list with the prescribed rubric on how they arrived at some of that as well. On say, hey, you got a 4 out of 5 on your performance evaluation based on this criteria, then that would award $100. Here's $50. I mean, whatever the number is. So.
But based on this motion, they wouldn't have to do that. We're just saying we take it and which is you see fit.
Correct.
Well,
That is up to the administration's, proxy on how to distribute based on that.
I see that being, you all approving the funds, and then as I would bring things to you, just to inform you, like here's, to inform the board, I can bring back, kind of where we decided to use those funds in relation to the TPR, just for your knowledge, not necessarily for your approval, because you've already approved the funds to be used in that way.
Well, is it, these staff people who are taking on extra duty and, teaching two classes at one time, are they currently getting extra duty pay?
Yes.
Are they getting compensated?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So I think what Benji was saying, that it's not necessarily extra duty pay. When he was talking about, I think he was just saying that staff people had kind of stepped up and gone above and beyond.
Exactly.
And he was using that as an example,
Yeah.
not necessarily the pay would be for
Extra.
the extra duty, but it would just be based on their performance evaluation.
Right.
But not specifically on just on extra duty.
Can you, I'm sorry, because I'm not remembering the exact wording you used. Is this for all staff
It's
for anyone?
everyone. Yep.
Okay, I just was making sure that you hadn't limited it to
No.
teachers or anything like that. I didn't think
All
you
new
had.
staff.
All new staff. Okay.
Paul, has that addressed everything, I mean, your concerns? Is it still?
I'm not going to be against it, but I think it's just a little bit messy. You know, when would we be looking to distribute these funds?
When we do evaluations in April,
We do some of those at the end of the year.
So do we want, Angie, would you be open to amending the motion to say maybe administration has to come back with a framework on how they're doing it? Would that would satisfy
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Yeah, just so everybody can
You'll have to have
challenge.
that. It's just-
Well, but I
Before
think
you can
there's,
pay anything out, you'll have to have that. You have to have the program, have to have the levels. Just for our part, what we have to do is just say, hey, the funding's available, we're looking to approve the funding, the outlay, not the program. I won't have to stipulate, pay this person X amount. That's up to the administration.
But I mean, it's really not a program, it's just a one-time thing, right?
Yeah, just a one-time thing. Just
Hey,
for the
it's-
2022, 2023 school year.
I was just gonna say too, so make sure we got the numbers right. So 125 is coming from this line for the longevity bonus, and another 100 for what you just proposed. The total's 256, so we're still sitting at
Yeah,
25,000.
are we
Well,
still
so-
okay, are we still okay to pay, because the extra duty pay is coming out of a different line item? It's not coming from these salaries that aren't being used, is that accurate?
Jason, I think what you were saying is that
I believe that is accurate. That is accurate.
Can I mean,
I
I
was
love
on-
this,
I'm
I love
sorry.
this idea, but could we maybe table it as unfinished business for next month, or for our next meeting, so that we can be sure, because if any of the extra duty pay for these teachers who are doubling up is coming out of this line item, it may be a different, we may end up with a different amount.
That isn't paid continuously, that's just paid end of the year one.
It varies based on the extra duties. So some are paid quarterly, some are twice a year, some are monthly. It just depends on the duties.
Right.
So I love the idea,
Yeah.
love the idea. I would love to have a hot second to just look at some.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, but does that make sense? Okay. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say, you were talking about what was going to be left up on the line item. What Benji was saying is that the 125 for the longevity is not, that 256 is after you take out the longevity.
okay.
No.
256 is total, current at basically 8 months into the year. So at 8/12 here, this is what we have current residual.
Okay,
If we
so,
take out the 125,
and
100
then,
to 125, you're still left with 156.
and
So I
then
was-
the additional 100, so it would leave about 56,000.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
all right.
Plus whatever we gain over the next 4 months.
Okay.
So that's just, at this current level, this is where it's at.
Yes.
I do have a clarifying question. Is the 100,000 proposal that's the number to pay them, and then the school's responsible for the taxes and retirement? Because this will be a retirement with performance tied to it. It has to have retirement. So then you're looking at 130,000 if you're allotting 100 to be paid out.
Yeah, see, I
So,
think
I just need some clarification on how much you want to put there.
I would say at this point, based on what we have as a current overage, I'd say we max it at 100K.
Okay.
And then if we need to back out the salary and benefits portion, then we back that out to get to 100K max.
Roughly.
Yeah.
total, yeah, all in.
So if that's 75K, then salaries, benefits, everything on top of that.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
I feel better about that.
I would still,
Hold off and
I would
evaluate.
still like it if we could do that. I love the idea. I think it's a great idea, but I think that would give everybody some time to kind of process and make sure that we're not allocating too much or too little, depending on, that'd be a great idea, I think, problem to have, right? So, okay.
We're not keeping any money out of people's pocket. It's not going to do it next week.
Right, no, yeah, we're not, yeah, this isn't money that anyone was spending on, so
So Benji, can I say that you have withdrawn your motion?
No, he's just tabling it.
we're tabling it to,
Okay.
under unfinished business for next meeting. Thank you.
For the school to come back and evaluate, and make sure that is feasible.
Anything else, Nicole?
No.
All right, anything else under new business?
I did, so I wanted to talk about something on during new business as well. So, we're at work right now, we're going through end of the year evaluations. We're talking about how we look at our peers and even having our peers evaluate our boss. So it is very fortuitous that you guys brought this up tonight, because I actually had this on my mind to talk about as well. And I didn't, so being relatively new to the board, I haven't seen kind of how our HR process works on, do staff have the opportunity to evaluate administration and that group, because I found that is a very beneficial process. It offers a lot of professional growth, making sure that everybody feels and they all feel heard at the same time. So what have we got? I'm a little naive on the fact that I'm not exactly sure what the history of HR looks like at Noose and who does it, who handles it, and how do we, because we've got a designated HR person that handles that. At previous jobs that we've had somebody third party that handles that. So I would like to have the board kind of have a conversation, maybe education, and talk about I mean, again, we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard.
This is peer evaluations, this is supervisor evaluations.
So I'm
manager
thinking
evaluations.
maybe an all-in, like how do we handle evaluation? I know that administration has the opportunities, and clearly as a former teacher, I always got evaluated by administration, but do teachers have an opportunity to talk about their schools, their school principals, and then overall, maybe it's a hierarchy of the other leadership getting evaluated by, again, how the hierarchy works. Who gets to review who, and who has peer evaluations with who? So then, is there a process out there for that? And then do teachers have the opportunity to evaluate even Dr. Blackwell? I mean, again, I think that got brought up tonight, so I think I'd like to have a conversation about it, hear what is being done and how, what could be done.
Well, I can't speak to what happened
Historical, yeah.
before I got here. When I arrived, there was a third-party HR consultant who was a part of Noose for several months. I think she had been brought in before I got here, a few months before I arrived. So maybe someone else can talk a little bit more about that. But in terms of them being able, our staff being able to provide feedback on their administrators, we send out a survey at the end of the first semester and then again at the end of the year. And there are very pointed questions on there. Rate your administrator, how comfortable do you feel speaking with them, a series of questions like that. And there's also a section where if there's anything that they would like to share just with me, that they can do that, or they can put some information in there and I'll reach out to them and meet with them and talk through things. In terms of a formal evaluation of their administrator, that doesn't currently exist.
Is the survey that you described, is that anonymous?
It is, unless they choose to put something in that bottom section, at which point I will reach out and meet with them.
I'm sorry, every other year also the state gives the teacher working condition survey. And obviously it is an every other year process. However, that is data that is incredibly valuable to the leadership at Noose, that though our surveys are anonymous, this one is very anonymous, right? So, and they ask some different questions than we ask. So every other year we get that feedback as well.
So does that feedback ever make it back to the board?
Yeah, I presented it to you all in the summer when we received the data.
Are you, when you talk about formal evaluations, are you talking about like 360 evaluations, or are you talking about like just an annual performance evaluation? Do you know what a 360 is?
Not particularly, but I know, what I'm trying to say is that I want everybody to feel like they're having their voice heard. And while I understand that's anonymous, and I understand it still is going to you guys and not.
Those only go to me.
Okay, so it goes to you.
Yes.
I don't know that that's I worry that they feel that that's I mean, that was, I've had one place that I worked that the evaluations went directly to the boss, and I did not feel nearly as empowered, to be honest, no matter how anonymous it said it was, as much as it was as I had an HR professional at my last position that she took that stuff, and I knew that it was Fort Knox and it was not going anywhere, and that my boss was not going to hear that I didn't think you wore the right color tie on Tuesdays or whatever the case may be.
So the reason that I was asking is because I think what you're talking about is the difference between doing internal and external, or, having a consultant come in and do it, or having an HR person. And was it an internal HR person?
So, yeah, I've seen it done both ways.
Right.
And so I don't know, but I also know that we're not as fully staffed as Johnston County Schools, clearly. So is there a clear HR person? We don't have a dedicated HR person here.
But what I was going to say is that, what I do this for a living. I go into places and do 360 evaluations. So it's possible to do that if that's something that we think is important. It's possible to have an external, person come in and use an external evaluation tool and have it, allow everyone an opportunity to participate, and then the data is all aggregated, everything is, even comments, everything is anonymous, and it's done in greater groups so that you can you understand where the data is coming from, but it's aggregate data, and it's definitely anonymous. So I think that is something that we could discuss if that's what you're talking about. Like, I don't think it would be a difficult thing.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I'd like to discuss that, but but how much is external consultant versus having an HR person here full-time? I mean, I don't know, again, I'm really bringing up a big idea that is not necessarily defined to be decided tonight. I just wanted to start the conversation as we're coming up on early April, and school's going to be out soon, and I'd just like to have, I just want to make sure everybody feels like they've got a voice at the table.
And Jason, it sounds like what you're talking about is just more like a systemic, like, what's our system? What are our procedures? What are our processes? And
Maybe it is an overall HR audit that needs to be looked at.
to just say, okay, how are we doing this? Are we doing it correctly? And is the board getting that information?
And this is not, again, we've been beat up the last 3 years through COVID and through everything else, and maybe it's that time to really take a look and say, hey, let's get the house, make sure the house is in order, and look at everything. I think it'd be beneficial for everybody.
Well, I think there's two different things.
Yeah.
One of which would take a significant amount of time and money and effort to do, which would be an HR audit and things like that, right? Like that would be a systemic look at soup to nuts, everything that we're doing in that respect. And I think the evaluation component, which is where you started, is something that could be done more easily with less cost, less time, and we could do that in a very fair and anonymous way without a lot of cost and time.
Sounds like an engagement survey. It's an engagement survey.
Yeah.
I've seen it done a couple of times. And then you can look at the survey, who do you want to survey? Who do you want to hear about their opinions on their engagement part of the process?
Yeah, again, nothing has to be decided tonight. There's a lot of things that I've drug up in this topic. I mean, I think we've got to look at all of it. An engagement survey is great, but also does it give teachers the opportunity to say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, on these 10 things on the rubric, if the same things they're gauged on, do they get to gauge the performance of other leaders and their department heads or whatnot? So I don't know that any motion, I think that I would like to have that under unfinished business for all of us to walk away and think about coming back with a plan at the next meeting to make sure that we have a way to properly gauge satisfaction before summer starts.
Well, and I think,
And maybe that's just an engagement survey to start, and based on the results of that, then we look at what's next.
yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between a satisfaction survey,
Or engagement.
engagement survey, and an evaluation.
Yeah.
Like those are
very
very different
Yes.
things, and I think that what the school has been attempting to do is more of a satisfaction engagement type of survey. So, it might be important for us to look at that.
I think maybe it would be, I think that's maybe the first step in looking at it, but I also think, and again, I think it would be helpful if those went somewhere other than your inbox, Melissa, not because I don't love and trust you. It's just a matter of, I want people to feel very free to be able to share whatever they want to share. And again, that leads to growth for everybody when that happens.
We need to take some time to figure out
You think? Maybe that's why we need to, yeah.
You know what?
I think everybody needs to come with some questions on what that needs to look like for next meeting.
Yeah.
But before we got out, I mean,
Exactly.
we for next meeting. I'm not going to be able to.
Other questions, comments, before we table it for next? Okay. Got it under unfinished business?
I do.
Lovely. Any other new business? All right. We have no current
Oh,
on.
wait, I have one thing, I'm just kidding.
Funny lady. Okay, ongoing board development self-assessment, we are not doing that this evening. We do have closed session, and so I will entertain a motion to move into closed session for personnel and administrative discussion per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6.
So moved.
Thank you, lovely, wonderful. I will call the roll to approve the motion to move into closed session. Nicole? Michelle? Jason?
Aye.
Benji?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
We are moving into closed session. Thank you all very, very much.